hang on. Why is it saying, since when's this happened? Okay, so people on the YouTube are going to be hearing this. So it says here on a premium account on X is required in order to stream on the platform. Oh, seriously?
Since when?
No.
It's too many crows on the pod. MJ was right.
Okay, I'll go live on my own Twitter account as well then. That's annoying. Okay, well, Twitter have only just changed that. You can subscribe on X or stream to a different destination. Okay, well, I'll remove that then, and then we'll
It's
go
weird
live
you do
on
this.
live.
Like,
That's annoying.
time.
Well, it's literally, I've done it. It works all the time, and now all of a sudden, apparently, said that. Anyway, we are on my own Twitter account, so we'll be good. All right, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics round review. We are recording live on Sunday, the 14th of July, post round 18. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BalesDT across all of the socials. If you are tuning in live and would like a player discussed or a question you would like answered towards the end of the pod, put it in the live chat wherever you're watching, and we'll get to those questions later on once we've reviewed the games. But Tim's sick tonight, so he won't be here tonight. But joining me, as always, is our other AFL Fantasy Fanatic. It is Jordox, mate. How are you? How was the weekend?
Yeah, good weekend of footy. Crows got up. The various fantasy sides all performed well, and now we're reviewing it, and there's a real Adelaide flavour to the pod tonight. So, yeah, I'm feeling good, mate.
Yeah, exactly right. And a bit of a coaches panel flavour tonight as well, because we do have a co-founder of the coaches panel and special guest joining us tonight to wrap up all the games. It is MJ, mate. How are you? How was the weekend?
Yes, no, nice to see you both as well. And look, a good weekend for lots of different people in the fantasy community. There were some big hurdles at the start of the round that, for the most part, I think the community kind of navigated its way through it without too much chaos. Then it came in various packets during the weekend, but the things that we thought were going to upset us. So, no, good. But it's kind of like watching your other half, with a new interest, with Jordox a part of the coaches panel and the Fanatics. That's yeah, it's fun to watch, but I'll get over it. I'll work my way through
it. Exactly right. Now, looking forward to getting into all of the games and stuff, but we'll start off with how we went in round 18. So, MJ, how did you score in round 18? What was your round rank and what's your overall rank?
Oh, look, to be honest, I probably should have been on this podcast last week when I actually had a good score of like 2,500. So, no, I just struggled to scratch the 2,300 marker. So a little bit under that. I'm having a not the fantastic of years, so just ranked outside the top 10K. So, and a loss in the Content Creators Cup too. So thank you, Captain Josh Dunkley, for just deciding not to turn up in the last quarter. But no, that's all right. It's one of those weekends. So happy days.
Yeah, exactly. Jordox, how did you go in round 18?
Yeah, pretty solid. 24-11 was the final score there, and went up a few hundred spots. So I'm now ranked 13-14. So 1-3-1-4. That top 1,000 goal is very much alive. So yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks for me.
Yeah.
How about you, Bales?
Well,
back up there.
My Damien Hardwick sort of little video that I made, revving the boys up, it worked. A absolute treat. 2,450, highest score of the year. So very happy with that. Round rank of 538. So first round rank this season inside the top 1,000, which is nice. It came at the vital time where I needed to try and claw some my way back towards the top 100. So 94 points I caught up this week. So still just outside 300 points. So still ticking along. We got a heartbeat again. I sort of was on the table, no heartbeat. We got the pads out and we were able to get the heartbeat back into a little bit of rhythm. So hopefully we can claw our way back towards the top 100. So very, very happy there. Up to 538 overall as well. So up about 307 spots. So happy with that. We'll go to our plus threes and negative threes for the week. So MJ, we'll start off with you, mate. Who gives you plus and negative three?
I didn't have too many pluses, but I'll give it to Zach Butters. He's gone back-to-back really big monster scores for me. So historically, people kind of look at scoring up at that Gold Coast hub and really get a little bit nervous and worried given how strongly they perform. So for me, going to absolutely give my +3 to him, getting a 133. I'm pretty happy with that. My -3 goes to Adam Treloar because I was trading into him all week. And with him being the late out, I luckily caught it, but I ended up to look, I'm ranked in a position, and I play the game for fun anyway, but went for a guy who I just love to own. So I went Tim Taranto. Looked great until he got injured. So with him being like, with that injury, now he's out at 86, and we'll see what the match report comes out, how serious it is. But he kind of summed up my round this weekend of an 80 odd. It's okay, but 7, 8, 9, I think I had 10 in the 80s. It kind of clips any ability to go there. So he'd be getting my -3. Adam Treloar forced me into getting myself a Tim Taranto 80 odd.
Yeah, no, very, very frustrating there. And I do believe that he did have concussion as well. So
cheers for the trade.
Yeah, concussion for Taranto. So unfortunately, yeah, he'll be forced trade for a few coaches next week.
Another reason to enjoy Treloar.
Exactly. Bloody hell. Jordox, mate, who gets your plus and -3?
Oh, look, +3, maybe I'll leave for you. Oh, you've got a couple in the 150s. Look, special mention to Goulden with the vice captaincy 151. He just bounced back the way we knew he eventually would. But no, my +3 goes to a young fella who got the call up. Isaac Heaney was out. I said, Billy boy, you're not the sub because you're named on the field. That's Dowling. Go out there and give it all you got. And he scored an 80, which I just think is so good for those who were in that predicament. Well, those who held Heaney, we all had to play someone. And my emergency was Harvey Harrison on Friday night. So, yeah, Dowling had to go in, and he did a great job. So, happy with that. -3, it's probably just going to go to myself because a month ago there was a player priced at $1 million in unbelievable form. And I went against all the instincts that I have in this game, and I picked him up, and that's Luke Ryan, a 67 on the weekend. Yeah,
we'll get in. We'll get into depth into that game because that was I didn't watch that game, but is from what I've heard, it was one very different game to what we've seen this year.
All right. Well, he still gets the negative.
So my plus and -3. There's because I got a couple of big scores in here, but I'm actually going to give it to someone that's not one of my top scorers because I'm happy with the guys that went big, but they're premiums, and I sort of expect them to go big. One guy I didn't expect to go well and be able to loop on was Lawson Humphreys on the Friday night with a 105. Having Will Powell there was the one player I was a bit nervous about this week, and being able to bank the 105 on a Friday night and sort of be able to relax. And then the rest of my players, I was like, I'm pretty confident with most other players. That was really, really good to start the round off with that. But yeah, special mention obviously to Goulden as a VC and also Ryan Marshall, who was amazing in the wet weather against the Crows. -3.
That's a good week.
It's a good sign.
That's what you want on a Sunday night.
Yeah, exactly. I would have said Luke Ryan because he was my lowest scoring player with the 67. I'll give it to Dylan Moore with the asterisks of the fact that I know that game was not suited to him at all. It was from what I heard, I asked like Mini Monk and a few people that were watching that game. It was just repeat stoppage after repeat stoppage, just sort of tackling, ball up, tackling. That's why Jackson and Meek were essentially two of the only guys that went over 100 there. Moore was on 50 at halftime, 23 points second half. I would have liked to have thought at least he could have got to an 80 even in a bad game in the second half. But 73-run debut is not quite what you want, especially when I looked at Myers for a little bit and a Jackson for a week playing both them went over a ton. So, but no, good week all around for me. So, so we'll get into, just before we get into the games, we'll get into the Content Creators Cup. But firstly, as always, the Content Creators Cup is proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. And where's the blurb gone? There it is. Because I'm a bit different. Tim normally reads this out, but I've got to do it. AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. Make smarter financial decisions where winning coaches will get $5,000 for their favourite charity. Just a reminder, there is a bunch of free gifts valued at over $3,000 available for every AFL Fantasy coach. Just head across to infinitewealth.com/AFL Fantasy to claim your free financial freedom masterclass and a stack of tool and resource to help you make smarter financial decisions. If you have a mortgage, Tim will teach you how to pay it off up to 3 times faster. And if you're paying too much on tax, Tim can also teach you how to save thousands each year. And if you are someone who's committed to building your wealth, then Tim can show you how he bought 13 properties by the age of 27. So head to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy to claim for more details. So we'll get into the Content Creators Cup. So very nice. I was able to get the win over Harmy this week there. And MJ, how did you go in your matchup?
I had another loss. So I'm bringing up the rear pretty much in the Content Cup this year. I think I've had like 5 or 6 games this year that have been decided in less than 10 points. So a few unlucky ones. But yeah, no, Nathan got me this week. So congratulations to him, about 30 points. Thanks, Adam Trelaw.
Yeah, and I think Ritz has also had a number of games as well be decided by less than 10 points as well. It's been a bit unlucky for you guys this year.
It's the coaches panel curse this year as well. So I think Mini Monk is managing. I think he got a win this week, but he's he's the one of the coaches panel representing that's getting those close losses. So I'm going full Adelaide. Can get there close enough, and then when it's close, it's like, no, I'll find a way to screw it up.
Yeah. And Jordox has got the bye, but he's already secured promotion for next year, so he'll be in it next year.
Okay, a lot of buys. Okay. Gap year.
Just some of the other results. So Warney got the job done over Calvin by 54 points there. Mitch, who after a poor week last week, and obviously we heard about it on the Ball Boys pod, he responded by top scoring in the Content Creators Cup with 24-70, taking down Roy there. So top of the table clash there, or 2 of the top 3 there, because I'm sort of wedged in between them with the top sort of 3. Mini Monk getting the job done over Louis by 120 points. Then your DC just got the job done over Luke by 114 points. Hef went down to Jeppa, who, was the top scorer in the Content Creators Cup. He got a 24-87. So Jeppa went massive there, winning by over 150 points, or nearly 150 points against Hef. Tim, 23-23, went down just to Stato by 31 points there. Sanch got the job done over Rids by 15 points, and Holmesy got the job done over Jake by just under 100 points. So a few interesting games there. And obviously one more game to go in the Content Creators Cup before we get into the finals. So very interesting to see what happens there. Just an update in terms of just overall. Mitch is up to 6th, and he's obviously leading both the head-to-head and the overall. But then Roy's up to 128th. Obviously myself, 538. Then we got Jake just outside top 1,000, and then Rids isn't too far behind as well as the 5 coaches inside the top 1,000 there. And yeah, so beautiful. Alrighty, well, Jordox, we'll get into the games, mate.
Yes, so the round kicked off with Collingwood taking on the Cats at the MCG in front of 73,435 who braved the cold. And they saw Geelong come away with a 20-point win, 13-13-91 to 10-11-71. The subs, Reef McInnes for Collingwood, he came on to replace Lockie Schultz in the last quarter. Schultz going down with what appeared to be concussion. And the sub for the Cats was Ollie Henry. He replaced Shannon Neal at 3/4 time. Other injuries from the game, Nick Dacos had what looked at the time to be, I think the whole fantasy world gasped when this happened, but it turns out it's looking to be just a corked left hamstring, not a pulled hamstring. Schultz had that head knock, and Tom Stewart had a head knock, but he did come back out and was good to go.
Yeah. But yeah, so just some of the scores here. So Darcy Cameron, 147 with 58 hitouts. Obviously, draft coaches would be very, very happy with that. And I know that there was one of my mates actually in the top 50 had him in his team. So I think he's like one of the only couple of coaches in the top 1,000 that's got him. So shout out to Isaac there. Yeah, but that's probably more a sort of note for future games against Geelong. And Tim English could very well benefit from that, because a few rucks of late have actually had well over 40 hitouts against Geelong. Brian Myers there with a 116. He responded after a poor game last week there. Max Holmes also responded after a poor game with a 114. Tom Stewart with a 113 as well. So a lot of these Geelong guys got it done there. Jack Bowes as well for draft coach with a 106. Humphrey's got the 105, so a few coaches able to loop him on there. And if you did have Heaney in the midfield, you'd be very, very happy with the 105 and being able to loop him on instead there as well. And then just a couple of poor scores here. So, well, Manor got a 70. You'd take that as a rookie. A lot of people would have banked that on the Friday night there. Jack Crisp with a 69. That's a disappointing score from him. So we'll probably just chat about him quickly first, MJ. With the 69 from Crisp, He hasn't been he got a 112 last week, mainly due to 3 goals in the first quarter last week. Is he a guy that maybe if you're in luxury trades and you've sort of got all these other issue guys off the field, would he be a guy you'd be happy to move on?
Yeah, he definitely would be. To me, clearly Collingwood have found and developing a new midfield mix over the past sort of 12 to 18 months. That midfield has evolved a fair bit. To me, it's purely in that luxurious trade phase, and if you still can't quite get to the completed side that you'd like to, quote unquote, then absolutely he's probably not that high end priority. But to me, if he's the worst player in your team right now, it means your team's A, in good shape, and B, it's then just about fixtures, matchups, and what you can do through there. So you can always drop it down to a Colby McKercher type if you wanted to kind of pocket some cash. He's delivering premium sort of territory numbers at a discounted rate for us at the moment. So yeah, if that's the worst player you've got at the moment, you could do it. But just a reminder, the risk reward is exactly what happened last week. You think you're getting rid of your worst performer, and potentially you could be getting rid of a guy that's going to go 110 plus.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the negative with the luxury trade season, because you can trade someone out that goes big and you bring someone in that has a bad one. So Tom Stewart, I thought I'd ask you about him, Jordox, because I know you love Tom Stewart. You guys have got a great relationship this year. Obviously he's been great. So that's 3 tons on the bounce now in the midfield. Obviously there was a bit of concern with the head knock, but he came on, he was fine. And then there was potentially a suspension there, but it wasn't sort of a big hit, and there's nothing to worry about with him there. Yeah. He's going to be roughly 770, but Geelong have got a very nice run to end the year. Is he a guy that you think can be a top 6 defender and you'd be looking to bring in? Because this midfielder going back and getting these cheap +6s is a pretty juicy role at the moment.
Yeah, look, we said it last week. We really did. We flagged that this would be something that Geelong persevered with, the midfield role, and that the benefit for Stewart would be he's on the ball, involved, but then he just took himself behind the ball. There was, the ends of some of the quarters was a lot of chip mark for the Cats, bit of possession footy, and he was getting involved. So he looked great in the midfield, and he looked just as great, with the +6s. So I echo what we said last week. I think he's a target. Whether he's a big target, I think everyone's backlines are mostly settled. I think most of us will be looking at the forward line. But, if you've got a Sexton sitting in your back line, or you held on to a Fisher with hope, excuse me, no, he's certainly an option. And just quickly, what occurred to me on Friday night watching him? There's a little bit of, I might be wrong, maybe I'm jumping the gun. There's a little bit of Rory Laird career arc to this. So Laird was similar to Stewart. He was not so much an interceptor, but a big accumulator in the back line. And then the Crows put him in the midfield. And then, he had a few years as, an absolute gun. He's still very good. Now, Stewart's older than him, but Stewart didn't start playing AFL till later, like I think he was 23, 24. So he might have a few more years left in him, potentially in this role. So I don't know. That's probably a conversation for the future, but I'm very interested to see what he does for the rest of the year.
Yep. No, 100% agreed. Be very interesting to see how he goes. Beautiful. All righty. Well, George, we'll move on to the Saturday games.
Yep. So the first game we'll look at was Hawthorn taking on Fremantle down in Tasmania, and they got the win. Hawks are flying. So it was in front of TBC. Thanks. That's real helpful. So there were a number of people there at UTAS Stadium to see Hawthorn win 13-9-87 over Fremantle 10-14-74. The subs, Harry Morrison was the starting sub. He came on in the third quarter for D'Ambrosio, who had an ankle issue. And then Michael Walters was also a sub. He replaced Sam Stewart at three-quarter time. And there were no other injury concerns in this game.
Beautiful. So, there are only 3 tons in this game. And both ruckmen, Luke Jackson, 111, top scored. He was very good with 31 hit-outs and 20 disposal. Kicked a goal in that as well. And Meek got the 105 there with 51 hit-outs. So, if you jumped on Meek at a discounted price in the ruck, you'd be pretty happy. And also, if you got on Jackson as a one-week play, you were rewarded with a ton there. Jordan Clark scored his only 100 outside of that 3-week run that he had of those massive scores. This was his first ton, and funny enough, it came in a game that was very, very odd. So Jeremy Sharp, 87 there as well. Andrew Brayshaw, only 84, but again, a lot of these scores are very ordinary. Like Will Day, 83. Hayden Young only got an 81 after starting off very well. Sicily, 79 with 3 goals. Dylan Moore, 73. Luke Ryan, 67. Like, there's just a lot of poor scores here. But we'll talk about Caleb Sarong, who I didn't mention, with an 88, Jordox. 5 games now under 100. I know, again, this was a weird game and whatever, right? But at the end of the day, he's not getting it done for us. Where do you put him in terms of priority of trading out? Do you think with Melbourne this week, you'd be happy to keep him for another week because this game was so weird? Would you be moving off? What are we doing with Caleb Sarong at the moment?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be, a top 6, top 8 mid for the run home. So if you're in a spot where everything else is pretty good, then yeah, as we said last week with Sarong, I mean, he's showing us what he is at the moment, and that's a low ton guy, I think, at best at this point in his career. So, as he gets older and he matures, another preseason learning how to deal with the tag, I think we'll see, more bumper seasons from him. But right now, 88 is obviously poor, but even if the scores were higher in this game, it'd still just be that low ton for mine. So not a priority by any stretch, but if you're in a position to do it, you're going to want to do it because 88 ain't cutting the mustard.
Yep, no, exactly right. And then the other players wanted to chat about Luke Ryan, MJ. Obviously, we mentioned before about how Jordox, how that's.
Give me some hope, MJ. Will it turn?
I want to get your thoughts on Luke Ryan, MJ, because he's got such a good matchup this week against Melbourne. Like, Melbourne give up points to defenders. We know this. Alex Pearce is rumoured to be potentially back as early as next week. So if him and Brendan Cox are back, that's great for Luke Ryan. But he's dropping these bad scores. So what would you be doing with Luke Ryan?
Personally, for me, I'd be locking him in, and everything always is contingent on is you focus rankings or leagues. It is always ultimately the definer and decider around that. As you mentioned, certain leagues are like 1 or 2 weeks away from finals. So if you're in a must-win match and he's your separation point, then maybe you're thinking about it. But everything to me screams to hold. For him, you talk about those players that are coming in, you look at what that fixture is coming in, and then really, who are you going to move him onto that's absolutely tearing it up in the back line consistently week in and week out? Yeah, Whitfield's doing well, Stewart's doing well, but kind of outside of that, Newman's had a little bit roller coastery. Newman has had some roller coaster. Martin's had some roller coaster. Even Sheasel was a tough matchup for him this week, but he's had some roller coaster scores too. So to me, I look at a Luke Ryan and go, do I want to trade out of somebody that's got 150 ceiling potential with some cavalry potentially coming back and a matchup that's there? I like to take on ceiling and have ceiling players, and I would much rather cop the 70 than trade out of him and watch the 150 knowing it was there on the thought that I'd be trading into somebody that might get 120, 130. Because really, Whitfield's the most informed defender at the moment over the last 3 weeks. Outside of him, no one's going really over 115 plus over the past 3 weeks. So to me, I'd go, man, I'm going to back in a guy that everything is indicating could pop that 125, 130 plus score rather than force a sideways trade. So I'd back Luke in given the fixture he's got.
Yeah. Beautiful. All righty, Jordox, we'll move on to the next game that was at the same time as this one.
It was at the same time on Saturday. Sydney defeated North Melbourne 2018, 138 to 9559 in front of 34,663 people at the SCG. North started well, but Sydney blew them out of the water, and it was very convincing. The starting subs, Luke Parker for Sydney, finally back into the action. He came on in the third quarter, replacing Justin McInerney, and who's hurt his knee, so that's going to be a concern for them. And he looked really good, Parker, albeit it was an easy kill at that point. North Melbourne starting sub was Curtis Taylor, and he replaced Liam Shields in the third quarter.
Yeah, beautiful. Top scorer of this game, and I believe was the top scorer of the round as well. Errol Goulden, 151. Good to see Errol back to his big ceiling ways, and topped off by a massive 57-point last quarter. So he is just on fire after a couple of down weeks, last couple of weeks. Chad Warner, 116. Draft coach would be happy. And I know a few classic owners, 2 goals, 3 there. Could have been an absolute monster day if he had kicked straight. Grundy with a 110 in a tough matchup against Cherry, and so definitely got the better of him there. LDU got a 106. I did actually see a few people bench Lawson Humphreys for LDU, so you lost 1 point. But at the end of the day, I probably would have done the exact same thing there as well. Then if you like sort of okay scores like Cherry 94, McKercher 89, Simpkin 88. Sheasel was disappointing with a 78 there, so a low score for him. And then Tom Power for anyone that's got him only the 63. And then just shout out to Luke Parker as well. 72 points in about a quarter and a half was absolutely ridiculous. I know it was an easy game for him, but yeah, good to see him back, and he performed very, very well. Is there anyone, MJ, because no one really sort of screamed to me to sort of really in-depth chat about? I think most people either did what they did or they might have had a poor game like She's going to bounce back. Is there anyone that you might want to touch on from either side?
For me, it's a Jai Simpkin. I think F5 and F6 feel like a little bit of a lottery at the moment. Like, unless you have Heaney, Caldwell, Flanders, and Zorko, whoever you have at F5 and F6 for most weeks feel a little bit of a lottery mover. So for me, a player like Simpkin to be able to get an 88 off the back of a ton last week and another ton just a fortnight or so before that as well, like, this is incredible value at F6. I know so much focus is on getting the best forwards with the best run for the best of everything. Okay, Simpkin playing as an inside mid. North have a great run home over the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's getting enough inside mid time. He's still spending enough time forward of the ball to be impacting the scoreboard. Another goal for him in this game. To me, he's as good as any F6 we've got going in the game, and that fixture's really, really nice. So I know some are desperately trying to spin the magnets on what they do through there. To me, Simpkin could be as good as any F6, because outside of those top Super 4 forwards, it feels just like anyone could drop a 60 or a 70, or anyone could drop a 110. And given his price point and given North's fixture, and to get an 80 against the Swans in Sydney, which is a really tough matchup, I think owners should be thrilled with that outcome.
Yeah. No, it was a very good game from him. He started on like house on fire as well. I think he had 11 touches in the first quarter or 10 disposals, and just chipped away at a solid score. So, and especially when you got Zorko scored an 85, like we'll get to him after as well, and there's Dylan Moore scored a little bit like less than that. So yeah, I think 88 you're definitely taken from an F5.
I think there were concerns too with Wardlaw coming back in, but yeah, it didn't impact his role. So yeah. I agree.
Exactly. Beautiful. We'll move on to the next game.
Yeah, so the Saturday twilight, didn't that throw up some stress for those who traded into Matt Kennedy? We'll get to that. So the Bulldogs
not just Matt Kennedy.
Hey?
Not just Matt Kennedy.
Yeah. So the Bulldogs defeated Carlton 14-16, 100 to 12-14, 86 in front of 45,387 people at Marvel Stadium. A big crowd turned out for Paddy Cripps' 200th game, but they couldn't get done for him. So the substitutes, Riley Garcia for the Bulldogs, unused. You don't see that too often. And then for Carlton, Matt Kennedy, who was Matt Kennedy, who was a popular trade-in target this week, was the starting sub, and he replaced Zach Williams in the second quarter, who had a hamstring.
Yeah, I was very close to saying on Friday that there was I looked at the bench and I saw Kennedy's name on the bench, and I just had a feeling. And it was after I did the pod as well. I looked at it and I thought, oh, okay, interesting that Kennedy's on the bench. So unlucky. And again, that's where the whole people that have got busy on Saturdays, why a lot of people want the fixed lockout, because a lot of people were at work or had football or had other sport, other commitments, family, stuff like that. And a few people might have missed it. So, but people like me that don't have anything to do was able to see it. But I wasn't on Kennedy this week in my side anyway. We've had Cripps in his 200th, 127 top scored there, was fantastic. 4 tons in a row now for Cripper, and they've got a decent run to end the year as well. Tim English, who we will chat about in a sec, scored 111 points. Bailey Dale, 103, and the Bont got there again, right on the 100. A lot of late adjustments for at halftime and then at full time for Bont. He went from like 39 down to 38, up to 43. But like, it was all over the shop. Then he got a few points after there. Nick Newman, 97, with a massive first quarter. Sort of quietened down after the first quarter there. Sam Walsh, that's a poor one there for 88. And I thought there was one other player I'm forgetting. And then obviously there Adam Treloar obviously was the late out that didn't play. But Tim English, MJ, 111. We obviously alluded to it before. Geelong this week, good matchup. For those coaches that maybe didn't bring in a ruck last week or are still looking at a ruck coming up, maybe they got Luke Jackson in their ruck this week and are going to flick him forward. Is English for you the guy you'd be bringing in with that juicy matchup first up?
Yeah, it is, but it's a very narrow mindset around that. One of the things that was interesting about what Chris Scott talked about in the post-match is he talked about how Reece Stanley isn't done yet with them, although it looks like Toby Conway is for the year with some potential surgery. He talked very matchup dependent around it through there. So on paper, everything looks great for Tim English this week, but then it does start to dry up. They've got Sydney, the matchup after that. We've talked about how difficult that can be. North Melbourne a fortnight later after that, and the Giants. So if you're looking for a longer term view, yep, there could be that nice hit for you this week. But to me, if I was trading into any ruckman, it's very limited coaches that have got a Jackson that was a 1 week play or have played some swivel magnets. To me, Rowan Marshall's run is much more appetizing in terms of somebody I'd want to get into. He's got West Coast this week, then he's got Essendon, then a few weeks later, he then has the Geelong matchup as well as Richmond. So to me, if I was trading up and going into any ruckman and spending big dollars on it, I'd be going there if I was spending over 900K. But English this week, absolutely, you could really feel comfortable that a 110 plus score is on the way.
Yeah, I agree. We'll talk about Marshall I reckon that's probably it from that game really in depth. I reckon we'll move on to the best game of the weekend, and we will chat a bit about Marshall.
Yes, Saturday night we saw Adelaide take on St Kilda at Adelaide Oval in front of 34,549 people, Bales included, who got absolutely drenched. It was teeming down with rain for pretty much the whole night. But the Crows got the job done, 10-11-71 to St Kilda's 5-9-39. The substitutes, a few eyebrows were raised when Riley Thilthorpe was named up as the substitute. Ended up being a genius stroke from Nixie because he came on at three-quarter time replacing Himmelberg, kicked 2 goals and helped get the Crows the win. For St Kilda, it was Ben Patton, and he replaced Riley Bonner in the fourth quarter. No injuries for the Crows at this point, and St Kilda, just Josh Battle had a leg issue.
Yeah, so a few big scores here, and my boy, Rory Laird. If there was ever a game that suited someone's play style, it was this game. Laird, typical 31 touches, 13 tackles, and 133. And I know Mitch brought him in a couple weeks ago, so he would be very, very happy with that score. Jordan Dawson.
Barely noticed him on the night.
Laird,
he just gets it done.
I noticed him because I'm always watching. People know that, but he got plenty of tackles. That anytime he sees in these conditions, if he sees someone moving, they're getting tackled, whether they got the ball or not. Yeah. So Dawson responded with a 114. He was very good as well. Had a quiet first quarter, but after that, really got going in the tough conditions. Ben Keys was really good, 110, good for draft coaches, and same with O'Brien, who got a 110, a few relevant draft players there. Nasai Wangney Miller is someone actually want to chat about in a sec as well. Jack Steele, again, a lot of tackles, games suited him, 105 there. Mateus Philippou, 93. Still a bit of cheap price. Could be an F7 that you look at maybe looping. Got West Coast coming up. So definitely someone to be looking at there. Zach Taylor, who I want to mention as well, because he got an 86, but he, for me, would probably be a downgrade of the week. Looked pretty good. Looked to have taken sort of Rankin's role with a few less CBAs, but had a bit of a mix. But because he had the 2 sub games, he was still 200K with a 65 break even. But with the 86, his break even will come down. He'll be 210, 215. And I think he would be the guy you are looking at there. I do have to mention Sam Berry for Jordox. He played quite well. So draft coaches would be happy with an 83 with 12 tackles there. And then Billy Dowling with the 80 as well was very, very good for those coaches. But Ryan Marshall, who I wanted to come back to, Jordox, 150 was fantastic. Played huge game time, 48 hit-outs, 20 touches, 9 tackles. If it wasn't wet, could have even had a few extra marks. He kicked 2 behinds and missed another one, so it could have been even bigger than that. Since he got injured against Port Adelaide, he has had a big game. He's had a great run since then, except for 2 games. Against Melbourne, where he gave away 6 free kicks and he got absolutely towed up by Gawn. every player this year has had a bad game at some point. And then against West Coast, he got 96 with 6 free kicks against. Other than that, he's gone over 100 in every other game. And obviously 3 scores have been over 150. So MJ was talking about it before, saying that he would be probably the one you'd be looking at. Is he, for you, probably R1 moving forward?
Yeah, he's been slightly disrespected, I reckon, this year. I mean, we're constantly looking for reasons to doubt him, whether it's the Campbell as the emergency, and then Campbell came in, Marshall still scored a ton. They lost Max King to injury. We thought, Marshall might go a bit more forward now. And he just doesn't stop him. He's not fazed by any of it. And he, out of all those rucks gone aside, he's the only one who's gone, 150 plus twice now, maybe even more.
3 times.
And I went English over Marshall this week, and whilst I was happy with English, I found myself wondering why do we keep doing it with Marshall? He's just an absolute beast. Stop trying to pick holes in his whether it's his fixture or who else is playing with him. He's a dead set gun. So absolutely, he's R1 from here.
Yep, second highest averaging player behind Gawn, and he's not too far behind Gawn's average of 114 with 113.4 for him. So, and obviously MJ mentioned his run to finish, but it's especially those last 2 matchups in, even last 3 really, because Nank in round 22 he gives up points, but obviously scores a lot himself. They sort of both go well. I think early in the year, I think that was a game at Norwood. Both Marshall and Nank both went big, but then he's got Geelong at Marvel, and then Carlton and Marvel. So 2 great matchups. And every game for Marshall, for here on in, and for the Saints is at Marvel. So that is why I also mentioned Nasai Wanganeen Miller, who scored a 106 MJ. He's been quietly getting it done, been getting in tons most weeks. Had a very similar year to what this year like he did last year. So started off the first 6, 7, 8 weeks with a few poor scores, a couple of big hundreds. But it was really from that point on he went well. And since round 8, he's gone over 90 all but 1 game, and that other game being an 89 against West Coast. But just being consistent between 90 and 110 most weeks. Every game at Marvel from here on in for Saints. Is he someone that you'd be looking at potentially as someone you'd look for from a Crisp or from another defender? Is he someone you're looking at?
Yeah, look at probably by the time that lockout opens, we know that's going to be Monday due to some announcements that's come out from AFL Fantasy on a Sunday afternoon around some of the lockout challenges that happened in the format. We'll know Monday, but basically it looks like a sideways trade of Crisp into a Nasai Wanganeen Miller. To me, it's that risk that we mentioned right at the top of the episode, which means it could pretty much, you could do a trade and it could make absolutely no gain for you, but he's the perfect player, isn't he, to play under Marvel. They love the ball in his hands. He gets plenty of uncontested possessions, finds his footy IQ to link up and get transition scoring as well as get some uncontested marks. So he could be as good as any defender pretty much on the back run for me. So yeah, absolutely would be someone I'd be looking to either round out or to get a nice fixture run on the way home with Nasai.
Yeah, and I still think that Sinclair's the guy that gets the attention as well. I reckon that it'll be Nasai that gets free. So yep, I like it. Beautiful. Move on to the other game at the same time as this one.
Yep. So we had Melbourne playing Essendon at the MCG in front of 52,866 people, again in a very wet conditions. Melbourne got the job done, winning 13-6-84 to Essendon 10-7-67. The starting subs for Melbourne, we had Tajwo Woden. He replaced Moniz Wakefield in the 4th quarter. And Nick Hind, the perennial subman at Essendon, he replaced Peter Wright in the 3rd quarter. No injuries to report from the game, which is a good result.
Yep. So this is almost if you want in-depth analysis on Melbourne Essendon, this is not the podcast for you, because all 3 of us were watching the other games, all being Crows fans, which is quite funny. But I think we can still take a bit from the scores. So Nick Martin, first big ceiling score since that game against St Kilda early in the year with a 143, thanks to 4 goals, clearly playing that sort of more up the ground role, but just showing still he can get it done wherever he is. 66 points in the last quarter as well. So he was very, very good there. Then we also had Trent Rivers with a 126. So I will touch on him and come back to him there. Jai Caldwell continued his streak of 120-plus scores, 4 in a row now, with 120 again, thanks to 12 tackles. He also had a big 3rd quarter with 50 points there. Jordan Ridley in a good matchup with 111 points, taking the 10 marks as well, which is surprising in the wet, but very good score nonetheless. Clayton Oliver, after a very poor first quarter, came out and was pretty good after that, scored the 99. So for anyone that's still holding him out there, he was solid there. Merritt, bit quiet there with just the 91 points and not getting a big sting score. He was one of the more popular captain options if you didn't go for, if you went a Dacos and maybe into a Merritt. So,
Neil Bullen
MJ
did go to him after all.
Oh, Neil Bullen, he did go to him. Okay, cool. Yes, that was obviously why that was a little bit lower. But MJ, Trent Rivers, 126. That's now sort of, I think he's gone 5 of his last 6 games have been hundreds, or 4 of his last 5, something like that. He's been very, very good, especially since being in this midfield role. The question I've got for you is, obviously, we know Rivers is probably going to be a good option in this role, but same price as a Tom Stewart, and then Colin McKerch is not too far behind. Who would you be picking between those 3 players?
For me, it all depends on whether you like to have a high-risk appetite profile, whether you like to have a unique, or whether you like to stay yourself with the pack a little bit more. Because if you want someone that's a little high-risk profile, Rivers fits that beautifully for you. If money and maximizing money is the most important thing, well, Colby's going to be the cheap option. And then if you just like to stay with the pack, then Tom Stewart's your guy. For me, I like to play the game with who's got the biggest ceiling and like to take on with risk, and happy to have it fail against me, knowing the upside that's there. So for me, I'm really, really comfortable with Rivers. They got Fremantle, they got GWS, they got the Bulldogs. The Port Adelaide matchup's not great for them, but then the last 2 weeks, and especially the grand final matchup or the final round of the year against Collingwood, who are leaking a fair few points to inside mids at the moment. If you've got an eye to the future, and value still is an eye for you, and you want some ceiling, and you're looking for unique, man, I think he'll be a touch over 750K, 770, around there when lockout opens. It's pretty tempting, isn't it?
Yep. Jordox, where would you be leaning with those 3?
Oh, I think I talked myself into Tom Stewart again earlier in the pod. But look, Rivers, since he's got that role, I don't have his scores in front of me, but I know he had a 60, and I remember that week we were saying, hold fire, the role is still good. Every other week he's gone gangbusters. There's a bit of Jai Caldwell to it almost. Let's see what he can do this week. But if I was picking between them, I think I'd be picking Tom Stewart. Glad I'm not shopping for a defender.
Yeah, mate, you love Tom Stewart. It's a very, very good sort of question for coaches this week. I like Rivers and Tom Stewart both. That'll be probably the decision I'm almost looking at this week. So, and then I think Nick Martin as well, obviously top scorer in this game. I think he's not an issue now. I think a few people are a bit worried about this role, but he's got the ceiling still. He's got a solid enough role and can essentially do what he wants. So he went well again. Beautiful. Move on to the Sunday games.
Yeah, we'll try and smash through the Sunday games. Today we had Gold Coast taking on Port Adelaide at People First Stadium in front of 14,526 people. And the Suns did as they do at home. They got the job done. 14-12-96 over Port Adelaide, 12-10-82. Starting sub was Will Graham for Gold Coast. He replaced Jed Bolter in the third quarter. And for Port, it was Francis Evans, and he replaced Jones at quarter time, who received a pretty nasty bump and had a neck/concussion issue. And Marshall also had a hip concern. So, look, the interesting thing from that is the player that hit him, which I've actually lost.
Alex,
do you know who that was?
Davies.
Alex Davies.
He's done.
You know
he's
what?
going to get weeks.
Yeah, he's going to.
You know what?
Yeah.
I was thinking ahead to the GWS tagger. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Bales.
I think Gold Coast are going to have 2 players going to be suspended for multiple games. Obviously, we would said Alex Davies, but also Malcolm Rosas. So a bit of a thug act, walked past I think it was Logan Evans, and just gave him like an elbow to the head, and Evans took a bit of a while to get up, but he was played out the game. But AFL don't want to be seeing anything like that. But Zach Butters, top scored in this game, 133. That as a non-owner, that really angered me. But obviously, MJ as an owner was very, very happy with that score. I'm annoyed. He was probably the one reason I didn't have a top 200 week. But anyway, Dan Houston, 122 was also very good. I'm not sure if Liam traded him out, but big
He was
score
gonna.
from Houston. Houston is a very frustrating player to own, but in draft, he's perfect because he's got these scores in him. So you'd be happy if you've got him. Noah Anderson, 112 in a tough matchup, was a good score. Travis Boak with 108 points with a massive last quarter of 50 points. Got there in the end. So anyone that was still rocking him at F6, you'd be very happy with that score. And Connor Rosie got to a 104 as well. So it's solid from him. And I've also got to mention Will Power, 98 in a tough matchup. I take the score of 105. I'm happy with taking it. I still gain points, but mate, couldn't give me 98 last week when I had you on field. Thanks, mate. Sam Flans as well got 95. His score's obviously been a little bit lower playing this midfield role, but was still solid nonetheless. Jordox with Butters. What are our thoughts? Is it a guy that he's in the 800s? Are you looking at maybe getting him back, or I don't know if you even had Butters in your team this year, but if you didn't, is he someone that you're looking at bringing in?
No, I've had him all year, and just recently added Rosie. So the two of them, 2 weeks in a row.
Butters then?
Yeah, I would. I mean, he's a real dynamo, and he's really hitting those 120 plus scores now. I just wonder what's happening. Why are they not tagging him? I mean, it doesn't look like there was much of a tag in this game.
I was screaming out in the chat. I was screaming out in the group chat. I mean, I was just like, someone tag Butters. Like, he was dominating, especially I think it was the second quarter where he went absolutely nuts, and I was just like, someone stand next to him, just getting plus sixes for fun. So, but good score.
No, he's a jet. Yeah, he's definitely a target. But someone's going to tag him at some point. But you know, if you've got both Rosie and Butters, which I currently do, the other will get off the chain. So happy days.
So I'm just having a look here. So they've got a mixed bag. So Richmond this week, obviously it's a very, very good matchup. I do think, well, we did see as well Richmond today. Jack Graham did go to Cornelio before he was subbed out. So Jack Graham probably goes to someone that could be a Butters potentially. But then he's got Carlton and then Sydney. So that's a Chincotta tag into a James Jordan tag. And then potentially Neil Bullen after that. But then he finishes with the Crows and Freo. So a couple of matchups to come in. With saying that, would you be less optimistic of recommending him as an option for someone? Jordox?
Based on that, no. I mean, he'll get some attention, but I think Port will work around that. And you know, I've said it many times this year. If Butters gets a tag, Rosie gets off the chain, the tag may shift. So no, I'll be pretty comfortable with him.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, I think that's it from that game. So we'll move on to the next game.
Yep. So we had Richmond taking on GWS on the Sunday afternoon at the MCG in front of 19,040 people. Richmond were competitive, but the Giants got it done 17-6, 108 to 12-12, 84. The starting sub for Richmond was James Tracisi is what I'm going to go with. He came on at 3/4 time. Tracisi, sorry, I was close. Nowhere near it. He replaced Tyler Swansea at 3/4 time. For the Giants, poor James Peatling just keeps getting the sub, but he came on at 3/4 time to replace Cornelio, who was off with a shoulder concern. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's not good for Cornelio. He just can't get a run at the minute. And then, you know, as MJ unfortunately experienced, Taranto was tracking for the ton before a tackle took him down with concussion. And that's what I was thinking about in the previous game. It was Toby Bedford, who has been doing tagging jobs for the Giants, and I would expect him to see some time on the sidelines. So that could open up fixtures for sides playing GWS.
Yeah. I personally, for me, he can't get off for that. So he can't get suspended for that personally. I think it wasn't that bad of a tackle. It obviously just unfortunate that Taranto's head hit the ground, but it'll be very interesting. Obviously the AFL have been hot on these.
He will. We know he will.
Injuries.
Whether we think he should or shouldn't, we just know how it works. So I'd be expecting couple of weeks at least.
Yeah, but then again, I don't think Heaney should have been suspended either. So, but it is what it is.
Hey, we're all moving past that. We're moving forward. Forget about
bloody
Heaney.
Heaney.
He's back this week.
Yeah, that'd be good. Good to have him back. But yeah, Kieran Briggs top scoring in this game with 140 points. So obviously mentioning before about the Nank matchup, giving up points. Obviously him scoring well himself. He got a 117 Nank himself, but Briggs would have helped a lot of draft coaches to probably a win this week if you had him. Lockie Whitfield, 132, was obviously fantastic in a great matchup. 35 disposals with 12 marks. Tom Green as well, 123, 37 disposals. But he did only have a kicking efficiency of only 13%. So any of the super coaches out there, he was under the ton this week. Because
we don't care about that. Yeah, it's fine. They all count.
Toby Green, I was very happy with 95 as my F5. Gave a couple of free kicks away, took someone out behind the ball and gave a free kick away. But that's just standard Toby Green, right? You sort of watch a game, it's going to happen every week.
Yeah, it's a Sunday for him. Yeah.
Yeah, your heart's in your mouth thinking just don't get suspended for a game. We move on to next week. So, but he was very good looking back to a bit of form there as well. And Taranto as well, was obviously on trap for the ton with the 86, but he's doing it with a tag as well. Bedford was tagging him all game and he was still getting it done. So I think Taranto, after he misses this week, he'll be a very good option to be bringing in because he's got a really good run last 5 games there. One to note on the run home. And Steely Green could be a rookie option. Scored a 70, looked really good as well. So someone to note there as a rookie option there. So I guess we'll just track back to a Nank MJ. Obviously, I mentioned about English. It was a good matchup this week. And then Marshall's a good option. Where do you sit with Nank? Obviously, he's got a decent run as well, home. Good score this week. Where would you sort of put him amongst your rucks?
Oh, look, he's probably the number 2 guy for me, but the difference is alongside Marshall, you're paying up for it as well. So he's got a Port Adelaide matchup this week, which is, again, a really favourable one coming up for Richmond. Collingwood, pretty solid. And then they've got St Kilda and Hawthorn a little bit later on too. So from a ruck perspective, it's actually a really nice run. The challenge for coaches that are needing a ruck, and again, it's really those that are probably running a Luke Jackson at R2 and not much else, everybody feels relatively solidified with their options, is, man, that's a lot of cash to fork out, and you're choosing to go unique against a Rowan Marshall at that point too. So that's probably the thing that goes against him. But for me, you're looking for ceiling, you're looking for things to go great. The only thing I'd say is a little flag around Nank is any team that's not competing or got a chance for finals, that they want to experiment with their list and see what players and combinations could be. I don't think it will impact Nank at all. I think they know what they want, but that's the only flag I would always ever raise with someone trading into a bottom 5 team is, man, experimentation could kill you. For what it's worth, I don't think that happens, but I would still go Marshall as my number 1 ruck from here on in, and then I'd put Nankervis in at number 2.
Yeah. And I think their VFL rack actually had like 62 hitouts in the VFL this weekend. So, but yeah, I agree. I think being captain of the club, I think he'll be fine. But fine. Definitely something to be noting there. Beautiful. We will move on to the final game.
Yep. So the round finished in Perth with the farewell to Adam Simpson. He got to toss the coin before the game, which was kind of odd, but at least he got a formal. Some sort of farewell. So West Coast took on Brisbane in front of 41,489 people at Optus Stadium. Were competitive early, but Brisbane got there in the end with a 16-10, 106 to 14-9, 93 victory. Starting sub for West Coast was Tyler Brockman. He came on for Liam Duggan in the second quarter, who was concussed. And for Brisbane, it was Bruce Reville replacing Logan Morris in the fourth quarter. The only injury out of the game was that concussion for Liam Duggan, which would have hurt draft owners and some classic owners.
Yeah. But yeah, going through the scores this game. So Lockie Neal top scored again with a 133. But besides that Windhager tag that he had in round 14 where he scored a 50, these are his scores from round 8 onwards. 137, 80, 122, 100, and then since the bye, 128, the 50, 135, 100, 143, 133. Absolutely getting it done. And we were all scared off with the tags and the tag risk, and obviously the 50 with the Windhager, and he's capable of that. But if you did jump on him as a unique, you would be absolutely cheering, especially because you probably went him instead of Dunkley, and he's putting up comparable scores to Dunkley besides that 50. So you'd be very happy with him. McCluggage also good score with a 124, and Dunkley got a 106. Disappointing in the end because he was on track for a 120 score, and a lot of people had him captain. For those people that went VC on a merit, VC on a day cost, were looking for that ceiling score to catch up to those Goulden VC guys. Didn't quite get that big hit, but at the end of the day, I guess your captain got a tongue, so it isn't the end of the world, especially when I've captained English on debut last year for a 70. Zorko 85 was a bit quiet, tough matchup, red matchup against West Coast there, but at the end of the day, 85, we know these forwards are all sort of not doing as well. Danaher 75, low score. A few people jumped on him this week in a good matchup. And then obviously we mentioned before with Duggan being out. But MJ, the thing I probably want to mention is that this was an obvious game for like a Lockie to be tagged. And Ruben Ginby played at halfback for the whole game. Obviously, like Jared Schofield, interim coach, it may seem like they aren't going to be running these tags moving forward. So just to mention on the West Coast matchup, is this something to be looking at moving forward in terms of captain, vice captain decisions? Because if they're not tagging, I think that we could have some big scores. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly the case. The hard thing with interim coaches is how they choose to play and how they choose to coach is always unknown. For me, though, I can't recall an interim coach ever using a negating player in a tagging role. Rather, they're trying to bring a new lease of life into a club. They're trying and experimenting a new bunch of things. And so even if Ginby was playing in the midfield, which as you mentioned, he didn't, to me, this never felt like the kind of game they were trying to clamp down on a Lockie Neal. So to me, it's not a hindsight thing, but rather a foresight thing. History tells us interim coaches just take the shackles off and tell players and teams and coaches and structures, let's play with freedom. Let's play with enjoyment. Let's play with some flair. And generally a negating midfielder isn't the case. So I really struggle to see how under Schofield they're going to run a tagger. They don't really have a player that has a skill set that is limited to doing their best football in that role. So to me, I don't see West Coast tagging. I was really impressed with how they played in this game. Their ball movement was good. Their forward line functioned a lot more effectively. In that last quarter, they actually out-hunted a Dunkley and a McCluggage and a Neal at clearance and at stoppage. So, yeah, I was really, really impressed with what I saw from Fremantle. And, yeah, I can't see them tagging for the rest of the year. With West Coast, rather.
Yeah. Well, even I think Lockie Neal kicked a goal late, and if he didn't have that goal, he would have even been a bit quiet for the quarter because he was over 100 at three-quarter time. So, yeah, they definitely got on top in the last quarter. So their run coming up, so they got the Saints, probably like a Jack Sinclair and the Sire. If any of them were going to get the attention, they will go well. Freo the week after could be good for a Sarong, a Brayshaw. Then Gold Coast the week after. So obviously you're looking at your likes of your Andersons and guys like that. North, LDU and Sheasel, Carlton, Walsh and Cripps, and then Geelong in the final game. I'm not sure who'd be tagging, if it would be a
Tom
home
Stewart
for anyone, but yeah, potentially. But yeah, so good. At least it's good for probably not having a look at tagging things, but definitely something to watch moving forward. And then the only one I just wanted to touch on, Jordox, was Josh Dunkley with obviously the 106. Obviously, he was looking really good. For those coaches that don't have him, and maybe you can go Sarong, maybe up to him, or someone else is paying up for Dunkley. He might be over $1 million this week. I'm not sure. It might be close. What are you thinking with Dunkley? Are you paying up all the way, or are you maybe looking for someone else?
I mean, you could do it, but I think there's enough value in the midfield area that you won't have to do it. I mean, I say that as a proud owner, but I mean, I look at guys like Bont and Walsh, some other big guys like that who I don't have, who are coming down. They'll be, potentially around that 900, under 900 mark. So you could pay up for Dunkley, but I don't know. I think there's enough value around there that you could go someone, much cheaper and get a similar output.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably should have rephrased it. I'm definitely not saying that Dunkley's a bad option. If you want to get Dunkley, 100%, definitely not going to talk you out of it. I'm probably more just meaning his next three of his next four are a little bit tricky. So he's got Sydney, then he's got the Gold Coast, St Kilda, which should be good back at Marvel. Then he's got the Giants. So just sort of, they're not like those juicy matchups you probably want to be like maybe trading into. But I guess Dunkley's that player that you can sort of bring in sort of whenever. But as you say, Walsh is going to be about 100K or so cheaper. So when you sort of look at the two, it's sort of going to be interesting if you need that money or not. So beautiful. Alrighty. Well, that is it from the games. We'll just quickly do a couple of questions to end off the pod. And Moon Boy has put in all capitals saying, tell me Treloar will be fine next week. I don't know if we can. I think it was calf.
I wouldn't get him anyway. I wouldn't get him
after this week.
After this, you just can't. The concern around Treloar has always been injury history and soft tissue injuries. And it's great when it's going for us. And it's why me and many others were pursuing him as an option this week. Now that we've seen it, man, that is a warning sound for you. There's some great options with great runs. Treloar is a no-go team.
I suspect Moonboy is probably already a Treloar owner.
I'm so sorry, Moonboy.
The capital letters that are used.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think. Well, and Moonboy was also saying Sarong, Ryan, and Crisp can go, honestly. Jordox, how would you be ranking in terms of who you trade at first between Sarong, Ryan, and Crisp?
Ooh, that's good. Crisp, I'm not too worried about Crisp. It's one bad game. Ryan, the damage is done in terms of coin. Probably Sarong, because I could recommend a whole bunch of midfielders you'd be safe. You'd feel safe with. And, MJ said this earlier in the pod, you could upgrade Luke Ryan. But who would you go to with any level of confidence as opposed to the midfield? So Sarong would be the priority.
Yeah. And then Sean also asked a similar question and then added Hayden Young in there as well. But you're still Sarong out before Hayden Young?
Yeah, where'd Youngie do today? He's still in
81.
people's bad books. Nah, he's
81.
all right. He's
that
all
game,
right.
there was a very tough game to score in as well. A lot of 80s.
Yeah.
So, what do we got here? Marco's got this question, MJ. Bont or Dawson?
Oh, they're totally different realms. They're 150K difference. It's probably going to be about 130,000 difference from here on in. To me, Bont is the way more safe, stable, predictable, reliable, both in terms of role and scoring and fixture. So for me, if money's not an obstacle for you, Bont is a better option. But if the guy's kind of floating in that mid to upper 800K range, Dawson's solid. The only flag I'll keep waving around him, as good as the Crows looked on the weekend, a lot of kids really took a lot of midfield responsibility. Zach Taylor looked good through there. Berry looked good through there. Billy Dowling, more coming off the wing, looked good through there. The Crows aren't making finals. I know they're going to keep telling themselves that they're a chance percentage-wise. They're just not. The best thing they can do right now is learn and give kids opportunities and responsibilities. Dawson's going to be great and fine, but if it's about who scores more for the rest of the year, it's Bont. So if money's not an obstacle, go get Marcus.
Yep, I'd agree. The one thing I would flag with Dawson, though, as well, for anyone that is considering, I mentioned this last week, his form away from home this year has not been good. He's played 7 times away from home. He got a 122 against North Melbourne, down at Blundstone, and a 117 against Collingwood. Both good matchups. Every other game besides that, he's gone 100 or below, including a 60, a 60, and a 57. So
he's at Marvel this week too.
Yeah. Against the Bombers. He did have a 155 against the Bombers earlier in the year, and it'd be very interesting to see how he does go this week. But yeah, Bont for me. What do we got? People saying yes. People not happy with Sarong. It's like Sarong's look garbage. Sarong's got to go. A lot of people not happy with Sarong.
No, he doesn't. No, keep Sarong. Like, again, genuinely, like outside of Dunkley, outside of, Merritt had a 90-odd and got tagged, but outside of Dunkley and Goulden, like there's no one who you go, and Bont, but that you go week in, week out, I feel really confident of 110 guys, like feel really confident. It's one of these weird years that our premium midfielders, we're taking 105 scores as vice captain loopholes because there's not uber premium midfielders that were every single week going, yes, I'm locking in it. And 105 is perfectly fine to take. Don't hear me wrong. But just 12 months ago, imagine giving the advice on coaches panel or Fanatics going, yeah, you've got to take the 106 as your VC loophole. You feel a bit dirty about it, but it's genuinely because our premium mids aren't consistently yeah, I know I'm getting a 110 every week. I know I'm getting a 120. So to me, yeah, there's a lot about Sarong. He got tagged by Connor Nash in this game too. That fixture's fine, but unless you're going up to Goulden or Dunkley or Bont, are you really improving your team all that much, given just how good that Fremantle fixture really starts to open up? So, yeah, if you're not happy with them, go for it. But if that's the worst thing in your team, your team's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even looking at me, if I was to trade out Sarong, I'd be going to Sam Walsh, right? They scored the same this week. They both got 88.
Yeah,
Walsh
exactly.
last week got 66. Like, you just can't trust it. As you say, unless you don't have a Goulden or one of these top guys, you've probably just got to hold him, I think.
Well, and Goulden went 80-odd last week.
Yeah.
So, to me, I just go...
Yeah, back-to-back scores under 100. Yeah, exactly.
Look, I get it, but put the game into context. He got tagged, a lot of stoppage, but Nash is a hard midfielder for an inside ball to score against well. The fixture does open up for Fremantle from now on. What's the worst he gives you? Oh, no, a high 80s score. Like so many of it, I think most coaches had 2 or 3 guys in their midfield go in the 80s or 90s this week. We're not getting 10 guys going 110 plus consistently and safely. So, yeah, it's annoying as a Sarong owner that you've got, 5 scores under 95, I think it is, Bale, something like that. Definitely 5 under 100.
Yeah.
So I get it, but unless you're happy to spend 200K to get into Goulden, who a week ago scored the same, I'm not too much sure outside of Goulden, Bont, and Dunkley that I'd feel more confident in, week out, given how good his fixture is coming up.
Yeah. Well, even like there's only 6 players averaging over 110. And funny enough, you got Gawn, Marshall, both rucks. Dunkley, Goulden, who we mentioned about as those mids, Shizu is defender, and Flanders, who's a mid forward. And then Zorko's just under at 109.8, who's also forward. So, as you say, but then looking at mids, the next closest mid is Treloar, who we just saw what happened with Treloar. Then you got Merritt at 107, Bont at 107, Walsh at 107, and then you got Butters at 105.5, Anderson at 105, Sarong 105, Dawson 104, Steele 103. There's no really reliable guys. We brought in Tom Greens and Rosie's, who were cheap and have been very good over the last month for all of us. But yeah, it is a tough one. So I do agree that Sarong probably copping a bit more than what he probably should. Final question we'll end off here as well is from Chris. He's asking, who's everyone got at F6? Already have Flanders, Caldwell, Zorko, Heaney, and Dylan Moore. Is Fisher the obvious option when he's back? I would say Fisher's a very good option when he's back because they've got a very good run to finish the year. But MJ, who have you got as your F6 currently?
Simpkin for me is F6, and I've got no desire to move him on. So for me, he's my F6 at the moment. And Fisher, I'm not convinced he's going to come back into the team next week anyway. He was okay at VFL level, and I thought North did a pretty good job for kind of a half to 2/3 of the game before Sydney did what they do to most teams, which is just put them to the sword, especially after half time. So Fisher's fine. But to me, Simpkin F6, and I'm not sold that Fisher's a great trade back in. Unless McKercher goes down, then sure, things might change.
Yeah. Jordox, your F6?
I've got Simpkin there as well, and same as MJ. I'm really happy with him. But I've got Luke Jackson F5 currently. I brought him in this week, got the job done, and now I've got to work out what I'm going to do with him. But if I get stuck with him at F5, F6, I'm not going to be too worried because he's scoring okay even when Darcy's in the side. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've got Toby Green, who I mentioned before. So that's a fun ride each week. So
he's an interesting one. You got to get off that before that blows up, I reckon.
I still feel I've got one other main issue, which we'll talk about in a sec, that I'm probably going to fix this week, but he might be a guy that goes the week after. So we'll have to see. Cool. But boys, I reckon that will do us for the round review. So MJ, what are your current? Obviously, Lockett hasn't lifted, and obviously you mentioned before with the few issues, it'll be on Monday, so people won't be able to do the rage trades tonight, which is a shame. I always enjoy doing that after the pod. But what are your early plans? What are you looking at potentially doing with your moves this week?
Well, unfortunately, with Taranto now getting himself into the protocols, he was in my team for a little bit over 30 hours and he'll make his way out. So I'll probably need to address that. And then I'll be freeing up some cash and getting Zach Taylor in from just keeping the money moving. So to me, that looks like the moves I'll need to be making this week. So Tim, it was fun for a week. I'll get you back in a fortnight, but you're gone, my friend, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's a shame. Jordox, what are you looking at doing your early moves? Obviously, you mentioned Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson, but I don't know. I've got a little bit of cash up my sleeve. So if I do another cash maker, with a Taylor or something like that, maybe I can look at bringing in a 23rd man. We didn't talk about him when we did the St Kilda game, but I thought Philippou was extremely sorry, you did touch on him, but I was really taken by his performance. There was a lot of talk in the build-up this week. Could you have a go at a guy who's just popped to 117 or whatever it was? Yeah, you absolutely could. He looked great in the wet, and that goal he kicked, I can enjoy it now because it didn't cost us. But in the moment, I thought, oh, get stuffed, as if you're going to dob that in the wet. So, looking at bringing him in maybe as an F7, and then I can maybe do some loop-de-doops with him and Jackson, something like that.
Yeah. Then my early moves, I'm looking at going, as Tim always says, I've got my trades already done, ready to go. I'll be going Richards down to a, what's his name? Zach Taylor. Oh, God, how the hell can I bloody forget the bloody Crows players?
There's a lot of Crows kids at the moment.
Yeah, down to Zach Taylor, and then with Mark Grade, I'll be going Will Powell out because I have to jump off. I know he's scored well this week, but I just can't hold him. And then I'm going to probably Tom Stewart at the moment. I'll probably have enough cash to get Nick Newman if I want to, or a Nasiah. I feel like I want to save a bit of cash and then maybe do some luxury shuffles in the following weeks. And maybe that's getting a Tom Green out for a Josh Simpkin. But that is also something I might consider this week, going Tom Green to Simpkin and just jumping off a potential headache in Toby Green if anything does happen. So that's what I might do there. But beautiful. All right, MJ, mate, thank you very much for jumping on with us. It's always great to have a chat, mate. Where can the people firstly find you across socials, but then also how can they find the Coaches Panel podcast and then get involved with Patreon?
Yeah, so at Coaches Panel is where you can find us across any of the social media handles that you could possibly imagine. As you can go and find us and all the content that we're dropping right throughout the week. My personal one on Instagram and on X is at MJWant. And then if you want to become a Patreon, there's a bunch of additional rewards that comes through when you join that, extra podcasts, hidden groups, and a ton of other stuff. All the details are at Coaches Panel, but it's just patreon.com/Coaches Panel.
Yep. Make sure you guys get involved. And thanks, MJ, for jumping on. Jordox, mate, pleasure. Where can the people find you across the socials? But then also want to plug something that I enjoyed getting some notifications from this week.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for the plug on Friday. Yeah, so you can find me on X at Jordox2020. But as you mentioned, Bales, it was a good weekend to be a sub of the AFL Fantasy subs and late changes. So we've got the account set up at AFL Subs. Jump on, follow it, hit that notification, and you will get a notification straight to your phone pretty much an hour before the bounce of each game with the subs. And it came in handy this week, I'm sure, those who had a Matt Kennedy potentially, those who had an Adam Treloar, 10 minutes before the bounce, you would have had your phone buzz because we did another update on that late change. So the beauty of following it, is that the account doesn't post anything else. All it posts is the subs. So you won't get stuck with notifications of Jordox's thoughts on the game. It's just purely the subs. So that's at AFL Subs on X. Go give it a follow and you're welcome.
Yeah. No, definitely go and do it. And turn, as you said, turn notifications on because it was, very, very handy. Didn't even open up Twitter, look at anything. It just then, notification. Okay, that's the subs. Close the phone and keep watching. So, no, very, very good. And you can find me at Bales DT across the socials as well. And you can find Tim at Tim Guest AU across the socials as well. And if you guys have got any other questions that you'd like to send us as well, you can send them to Ask Me on Q, spelled QU.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. I'll send you a personalized audio response to your email in regards to any questions, trades, captains, vice captains, draft, team dependent question. You can send through your screenshots, everything, make sure you hit up the link that's also at the very top of the description and in the podcast description. But thank you everyone for tuning in, that tuned in live as well, and people that sent in their questions. And if you are listening back to the podcast and enjoyed, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. That would be very much appreciated. So thank you, everyone. And we'll be back on Tuesday night for our Tuesday night Q&A at the usual time, 9 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Perth time. So thanks, guys. Happy trading tomorrow when lockout lifts, and we'll catch you guys then. So see ya.
See ya.
All right. Thanks, everyone that watched on YouTube. If you can, smash a as balloon.
That was good.
Yeah, make sure people watching on YouTube, smash a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. 100 likes would be fantastic on the video. So make sure you go and do it right now. It takes 2 seconds. Thanks, everyone.